Gunpla, Bandai's line of mecha model kits depicting the various robots of the Mobile Suit Gundam television show. Over the last 40 years, it's evolved from something to simply sell toys to a cultural phenomenon so ingrained into Japanese culture that 2 life-size statues of mobile suits have been erected. And today, we're going to take a look at just why and how this happened. In 1979, an anime called Mobile Suit Gundam began to air on Japanese television. At the time, it faced harsh competition from other mecha shows going on during this period, like Magnesizer Z and the first Super Sentai show, Battle Fever J. The issue was that these shows were considered super robot shows. Shows that central plot element was the robots itself. They were often extensions of superpowers or magical or used to fight monsters or aliens. This is where Mobile Suit Gundam differed. It brought along the idea of real robots. Robots not being the central plot device, but using the robots to help tell a story of people during wartime. Specifically, the story of the Earth Federation fighting Zeon forces over control of space and Earth's space colonies. Unfortunately, this idea wasn't super popular, and the show was cancelled after 39 episodes. But thanks to a renegotiation and a toy deal, it was able to air till its 43rd episode, where it was unceremoniously ended. Now, that toy deal is actually especially important because it's pretty much what saved Mobile Suit Gundam and it allowed it to turn into the giant of multimedia and model kits that it is today. At the time, during its run, Mobile Suit Gundam had a deal where a company called Clover could produce toys for it, specifically die-cast metal models as part of its Chokugen line. Unfortunately, these toys didn't sell well, and when the series ended, toy company Bandai bought the rights to develop toys for the show. They debuted plastic model kits of the robots from the show. They were significantly cheaper, they were easier to build, and they were needed to be glued and painted. But because of this, they became extremely popular. And at this point, it's almost impossible to get your hands on those original models. They're basically giant collector pieces at this point. But these Gundam plastic model kits, or Gunpla as they would later be known, saved the show. And because of the interest in the toy line, the interest in reruns increased as well, to the point that reruns became so popular that it greenlit the next show, Mobile Suit Gundam Zeta, in 1985. Unfortunately, Gundam and Gunpla would have to wait to explode in the West. Because while OVAs and the original trilogy movies were aired dubbed in the US, they didn't garner a lot of support, and a lot thought that Gundam didn't have a place in the US, until Mobile Suit Gundam Wing debuted. Unfortunately, the show was kind of lacking and didn't perform well in Japan. Most attribute that to it being one of the first shows to move away from the Universal Century timeline. Basically, the timeline that most Gundam shows had operated in. The show moved away from its real robot roots, moving more towards super robots, with, instead of the Gundams being more of a prototype and an advancement in the technology, they just seemed to completely outclass anything else in the show. And because of this, the show wasn't received very well, as it looked like a departure from the norm. That is, until it was aired on Toonami, Cartoon Network's anime time slot. The show exploded in the US, being one of the most popular titles to be aired at the time. To the point where, if you ask any US fan nowadays, what got you into Gundam? Their go-to answer is usually going to be Gundam Wing. And because of this explosion and interest in the US, Gunpla also exploded. Model kits of the suits became an instant hit for people in the US, and it secured Mobile Suit Gundam's ability to be sold and marketed in the West to this day. Now, if we'd really like to talk about how Gundam has exploded in Japan, one simply has to look at its marketing. Gunpla is all over the place. You've been able to buy model kits of mobile suits done up in 7-Eleven colors. Haro, an AI companion for one of the characters, has become basically a mascot for the series, and is marketed all over the place. In fact, model kits of Haro are extremely popular, even though it's basically just a ball that talks. But here's the thing. the franchise has become so popular that an entire mall was constructed, the Gundam-based Tokyo. While it has cafes with Gundam-themed foods and shops with Gundam-themed clothing, its real piece is the Gundam Museum, a museum dedicated to everything Gundam and Gunpla related, with a timeline of model kits and a store where you can buy almost any model kit ever made, including the originals, for a fairly high price. In fact, the Gundam base is so ubiquitous with Gundam and culture that a life-size Gundam unicorn was erected outside of the Gundam base Tokyo. With last year being Gundam's 40th anniversary, and this year being Gunpla's 40th anniversary, it really is amazing to see how long this series has lived on with the help of its toy line. And while this show has gone through dips in popularity, like when Gundam Victory was shown, it still comes back, and it comes back hard. In fact, just this year, we're having a crossover event with Hello Kitty. With last year being Gundam's 40th anniversary, and this year being Gunpla's 40th anniversary, it really is easy to see just how long the series has gone on thanks to its toy line. Simple model kits saved this series from being a forgotten thing of the past, but instead, it's a cultural phenomenon. And while the show has gone through dips in popularity, like when Wing was announced and when Gundam Victory was shown, it still goes on. And Gundam has crossed over with other Japanese cultural icons. This year we're getting a model kit of Hello Kitty and the Gundam smashed into one character, which is insane. And with 40 years of history behind it, it seems like Gundam won't be slowing down anytime soon. And with a new movie and a series that debuted last year, and a trilogy of movies debuting at the end of this year, it really doesn't look like Gundam is going to be going anywhere. And you can be sure that there'll be Gunpla to go along with every suit shown in that show.